Good evening, Al-pam viewers. This is producer Ken. I am pinch hitting tonight for our regular host, but that doesn't mean we have some great guests tonight. So tonight we're still talking about our elections because we've got another primary coming here in May, and one of the candidates who is going to be up for part of that primary is Jack Clark, and Jack Clark is running for state auditor, and he's here with us. So we're going to talk to Jack for a little bit and get you to know him. Some of you have met him, but he's a neat guy, and look forward to having you folks who watch with Al-pam to learn more about him. So, Jack, welcome. First
Thanks
question is, what does, for people who may not know, what does the state auditor do, and why should every citizen be invested in knowing about this for the election?
So the main role of the state auditor is to make sure anywhere that receives state money is using their finances efficiently and effectively. So the state auditor goes into, like I said, anywhere that the state allocates money or gets taxpayer money and audits them using generally accepted audit standards to make sure that the purposes that they're supposed to be using it for is what they're actually using it for.
I've read your background on your website, so tell me, for people who don't know you, tell a little bit about who you are and what's your background and how that relates to running for state auditor.
So my background is in auditing, and not just accounting specifically, but auditing. I have a master's in accounting on the audit track. I got a CPA. My highest CPA exam score was in auditing. I spent my career, part of a career in external auditing at a big public accounting firm. And then I worked at a big private company as an internal auditor. So I've audited companies, multi-billion-dollar companies and tiny startups. So I can audit the big agencies and the small municipalities. I've helped set up controls and procedures in the private company I worked for. So I know how to do it in the government agencies I'll be auditing. But my whole career up until very recently, right now I work for a budget chair in the State House, which means I have firsthand experience being in the room when the budget's being negotiated and decided on. So I know where the money's supposed to go, and I have the skills to audit where it actually goes.
Next question is, so if you win, where's the first place you would audit? And talk about sort of the whole North Carolina system. I know the DMV makes my head hurt, but tell me about some of your plans if you were to win on what do you think is a concern for this office?
So I see the auditor's office a lot more like a judge. You're not going to ask a judge candidate, what cases they're going to take up first.
Sure.
And so I'm not deciding where to go first for now. I'm going to look at places that haven't been audited in a while, that get a lot of state money, that are high risk, that are critical to the state. And there's definitely some agencies and some areas that'll pop to people's heads. And I'll imagine, the DMV, DOT, Board of Elections, those type of places where I imagine. But everywhere needs to think they can be audited. And if I were to come out and say, we're going to audit X, Y, and Z, a lot of places would be like, oh, he's not going to get to us. And if I promised anywhere that really did need auditing, it would take me 1,000 years to complete all that. So I'm really trying to be focused, get all the information before I make a decision.
For those of you who don't know, again, much about you, how long, because you're running the Republican primary, talk about your Republican credentials. How long have you been a Republican, and how does that impact upon your decision to run?
So I'm originally actually from Washington, D.C. I escaped the swamp as soon as I possibly could. Came down to North Carolina for college, did my undergrad at Duke, grad school at UNC. So D.C., Duke, UNC. I was a Republican in all of them, openly and transparently. I was in college Republicans in Duke, for example. And I've known I was conservative since I was 13. Didn't take me to my mid-50s to start standing up for conservative values. I've been involved in the GOP in Durham, where I used to live, and in Wake now, for a number of years rather than for a number of months. And this is the party I've been registered with my whole lifetime. It's what I voted for my whole lifetime. And it would be the honor of a lifetime to be able to represent the Republican Party on the ballot in November.
a lot of times the big races get the attention when it comes to Congress or whether it comes to things like governor. Talk a little bit about the idea of why does a council of state like this, why does this matter to the average person?
So the General Assembly decides where your money goes, but there needs to be someone to check to make sure it's actually going to those places. It's another line of defense against fraud and waste, just so there's not a black hole that money goes into and isn't used properly. The auditor has a very particular role, a very important, very niche role. It's not a policy setting position. It's not necessarily an agenda setting position. It's not legislating or deciding where the money goes. It just makes sure that the money's not being used for things it's not supposed to. So there needs to be a check. We all need someone to come in behind us and make sure that we're doing the right thing. And it's not fair to us to not have that, because even the most honest, God-fearing people could mess up, just honest mistakes. And if there's no one to go back and check to make sure they did everything right, they're not going to do the best job they can, because that's really what I see my role as, helping everyone do the best job they can.
What do you consider, and you might have mentioned before, you have your CPA license, and if you do, talk about how does that make you different than maybe even your opponent? What does that mean for the average person? Because I can tell you what a CPA is, but maybe the person who's watching us may need to know, why does that matter?
So the CPA is Certified Public Accountant, is the premier accounting certification, the premier accounting license. There's a handful of others, but CPA is the show. It's the big dance. A lot of people think CPAs and think tax accountant, because most people get a CPA to do their tax accounting, and that's important. To have that CPA background is important for taxes. But my career, my niche was auditing. So a CPA needs three things to get the license. It needs education, experience, and to pass exams. So education in accounting generally, but mine was on the audit track. For the exams, there's 4 of them. One's tax, obviously, and one's auditing. Auditing was my best exam by far. And then experience, if you work as a tax accountant or under a CPA, as a bookkeeper, or as an auditor. And public accounting in particular is where a lot of people get their CPAs. And ask anyone who's worked in what's called the Big Four, or even some of the other big public accounting firms. They train you well. It's a lot of very difficult experience where you learn a lot in a very short period of time. And having that CPA and working in public accounting as an auditor, there's just no other background that quite matches that. Now, you can be an auditor and not be a CPA. There are kind of other routes that would be valid, but none of my opponents in the primary, none of the other candidates in the other parties have really that strong audit background that I have.
Well, the election, I believe, is May 14th. So again, to kind of close us out, give that last, how can people follow you? Why vote for you? And sort of let's wrap it up. How can people follow you, and why vote for Jack Clark?
So you can find all my social media links on my website, jackclarknc.com. I think it's Jack Clark NC on Instagram, Jack Clark CPA on Twitter. You can search Jack Clark for State Auditor on Facebook. Follow me on LinkedIn, Jack Clark. But whatever your social media of choice is, I'm open, and I post when I can. I think you should vote for me because I'm the most qualified in auditing. It's a very specific niche role that I think it's really important to have that mindset, to have those skills, to be able to connect with the auditors in the department as a fellow auditor. I think that's going to be crucial. And if you're voting on the Republican primary, you probably want someone who's been a Republican for more years, I think, than my opponent has been in months. been an auditor as he switched in 2023. So I would love everyone's vote. If you didn't vote for me in the first round, I would still love your vote in the second round. And if you vote for me in the first round, please go out and do it again. Early voting starts Thursday, April 25th, and runs through May 11th, Saturday, May 11th. And then obviously voting day is May 14th. Yeah, that's my pitch.
Well, good deal. Well, listen, Al-pam viewers, thank you for watching. Jack, you've been great. Again, everybody go out and vote. This is producer Ken pitch hitting, and we'll see you soon on the Al-pam News Network.